Hello and welcome back to Hidden Agendas. Well, you might have heard the news that President Joe Biden, President of Estados Unidos, got the UAW, or United Auto Workers endorsement for Presidente.
In labor news, the United Auto Workers Union has endorsed Joe Biden for president.
And that is very important. But also important in that news was that during that conference announcing it, Joe Biden also got some jeers for his stance with the Israel-Palestine conflict, or the bombing of Gaza, Israel's bombing of Gaza.
Biden's speech was interrupted when UAW members stood up and called for him to support a ceasefire in Gaza.
It should be
Biden's UAW endorsement comes even though UAW has publicly called for a ceasefire.
As well as, also interestingly, Shawn Fain, the president of the UAW, warned that Donald Trump is a scam.
Donald Trump is a scab. Donald Trump is a billionaire, and that's who he represents.
Well, let's just look at those three things and make some sense out of it. In many of my earlier shows during the Trump presidency, I showed Trump's ties to the petrochemical fossil fuel industries and what I call those reckless elements of the business community. That largely his presidency was punctuated with environmental deregulations and tax cuts for the wealthy or big corporations. Now, the dominant propaganda is, hey, that's a good thing because it gets the economy going. But in my opinion, that just creates a big sugar high for the economy, meaning it's really just empty consumption, empty production that is just going nowhere and pumping our biosphere full of plastic pollution, carcinogens, particulate matters, and greenhouse gases. Now, it is my impression that the GOP, or the Republican Party, and this was the case under Trump, such as my impression, never did show on this one though, that party is generally not favorable towards creating conditions conducive to union organizing or labor organizing, nor are they supportive of regulations regarding workplace safety. They tend to oppose anything that might level the playing field, shall we say, or create that stability, like, for instance, affordable health care through a national health care plan or a national health care insurance like Bernie Sanders wants, or affordable, cheap, basically free college also like Bernie Sanders wanted. So the scam part comes in, and that, yeah, we're just going to have business as usual, just tax cuts for the wealthy and those big corporations. They're going to dominate and run our society. Nothing's going to change, or the environment or the nature of this economy. The basic people are not going to get affordable health care ever, as it's been going on over my whole lifetime. But we're going to misplace anger or focus anger on an outnumbered group of people, like specifically in the Trump case, it's going to be really getting everybody really focused on illegal immigration or just immigration in general, or even demonizing those who are trying to help us, like vilifying environmentalists or others, or calling some kind of like healthcare socialism, calling that a bad thing. That's where the scam part comes in, is where you're directing public anger. Nothing's really changing, but you're going to never be mad at somebody. Now, Democrats, by contrast, over my lifetime, have traditionally been more open, more receptive towards labor unions and their demands, as well as environmental organizations and their demands, which I hope would be our demands and your demand also. And whether we agree or disagree with the unions and the union movement, I think most historians and economists would give them credit for the fact of even having a more stable middle class, a larger middle class, as well as workplace safety standards and the 8-hour workday. Well, what about Joe Biden getting jeered over his support for Israel's bombardment of Gaza and possibly actions in the West Bank as well? Well, here we should look at how Biden is not a true leftist, even though some media outlets like to call it radical, far left and all that. He's not a true leftist in the sense that he's not comfortable questioning these dominant industries, as was Bernie Sanders, who was closer to being a true leftist, in that, if that's how we're defining true left. And if you had listened to news outlets like I would consider the true left, like The Intercept or Democracy Now!, I think we all sort of saw what was coming with Joe Biden, in that he's, like Trump, has a lot of ties to that military-industrial complex, those defense contractors. Now, in the case of war number one, which is the conflict after Russia invaded Ukraine, well, here Biden's stance began alienating the true left right from the get-go, as well as was already alienating elements within the conservative movement, but for different reasons. Within the true left, it would be, hey, they didn't really support expanding NATO in the first place, viewing the constant expansion of NATO as really just a way to fatten up defense contractors. Whereas it's my impression among more conservatives, there's a belief that I don't think is entirely true, that Russia stands for these conservative values and there's some alliance with Trump and Russia. Now, in the case of Israel, and I think a lot of the liberals, though, have already been becoming skeptical about Israel's treatment of the Palestinians over the past however long it's been, 75 years now, maybe. Since Israel was founded, since the Zionist movement began, and people from Europe largely were emigrating back to the lands that they considered their ancestral homeland. But it was their ancestral homeland a long time ago. For that, you may want to check out my show on Jews for Peace and the history of Gaza Untold. Remember, there are a lot of Jewish people who actually are not happy with Israel's behavior in Gaza and the West Bank, but that tends to get overlooked. So even liberal sentiment has been catching up with groups like Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, who have been very critical of Israel over the past many years. And it was their expectation that Biden would have been more neutral, more of a neutral arbitrator or an arbiter with this conflict, rather than simply handing Israel lots and lots of weaponry. And in a sense, while not talking that same tough talk and that Donald Trump did, and not having that same friendliness with Netanyahu like we perceive Donald Trump to, but still in effect carrying out a similar, very hawkish policy. And out of fairness, when it came to Russia, I do think Trump would have given Russia a bit more space because of those aspects or those elements in the conservative community who view Russia as sharing conservative values, although, again, I feel that's somewhat misplaced. So just in summation, you got to keep your eyes on the big picture, that these large industries and businesses really dominate both parties, but the fossil fuel petrochemical industry has more influence within the Republican Party. The defense industry is almost split with its influence. It's almost equal, slightly more than the Republicans, but almost equal. So my advice is you should, if you got to choose between Trump and Biden, you should go with the UAW and choose Biden, but just keep protesting Biden on issues you disagree with him over. Well, hey, I hope you found this analysis helpful, interesting, useful. If you did, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel. You click that notification bell so you know when I'm putting up a new video. You're liking, you're commenting. Constructive criticism is so helpful. I decided to try standing up again and speed up my vocal pace a bit. Let me know what you think. And if you could join my couple supporters of Patreon, Belle LaGrussi, Esther C., Environmental Coffee House, that would be greatly appreciated. This show has come at a massive opportunity cost for me over these past few years. And as always, until next time, peace be with you.